Welcome to Astro Chat with Anne Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monica Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with a respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It is another fabulous week with the Astro Chat podcast. Today, you're joined by myself, Kimberly Williams, and my cohort, Monica Anna. And this week, Anne Sundell cannot be with us, but hopefully next week she will be, or the next time we record, 2 weeks' time, she'll be back with us. We're looking today at the full moon in June of 2023. So this is going to be on June 3rd for those of us here in the United States. It's at 10:40 p.m. Central Time. And then across the pond, it'll be the next day. It'll be on June 4th, 4:41 a.m. in the UK. That would be 6:41 in Finland. Feel free to convert that to your time wherever you're at so that you can follow along with us. We're going to be looking at the 2 weeks between the full moon, which is going to be at 13 degrees of Sagittarius, and the new moon, which will be on June 18th. And that one's going to be at 26 degrees of Gemini. So we'll talk about that the next time we get together. Some highlights of what might be happening during this 2 weeks, some of which we're going to talk about, but we may not get to all of them. It just depends on how much Monica and I have to say. And usually it's a lot, right? We're looking at Mercury is finally out of the post shadow from its retrograde, right? That happened last month on May 31st. And it is going to ingress into Gemini, its sign of rulership, on June 11th. And before that, we're going to see that it actually finally makes the contact, the exact conjunction with Uranus on the 4th. We're going to talk about that some more later on. Venus will be entering Leo on the 6th, and she enters her pre-shadow period on the 14th. So pay special note because some of that pre-shadow may happen next month when she's in full-on retrograde. Mars is finally out of bounds. In fact, we have no out-of-bound planets during this 2-week period other than perhaps the moon. So yay, this is kind of exciting. And Jupiter's trucking along in early degrees of Taurus, but continues that square energy with Pluto, which we'll dive into in a bit. Saturn is going to retrograde on the 17th of the month, which is the day before the next full moon. So I expect we'll talk about that a lot in our next upcoming podcast. And the other thing of note is Pluto, which has just recently, right, been in Aquarius since March 23rd. It has been retrograding back. We're going to see that retrograde will ingress back into Capricorn also on June 11th, and will be staying in Capricorn throughout the rest of the year. So those are some things that you might want to look at, how they affect your natal chart and where they are at. And we will talk about as many as we can dive into. But first, Monica, take it away. Tell us about this lovely full moon in Sagittarius energy.
So full moon in Sagittarius, I have to say, I think Sagittarius lunation are probably one of my favorite, if I have to. Sagittarian and Taurian, those are probably my favorite lunations. Everyone has their bias. Sagittarian new moon, full moon. Full moon is expansive on its own, right? We're having loads of energy, we're expanding, it's a peak of a cycle, we're coming to culmination, there's so much energy and everyone is buzzed up. And then on top of that, we layered Sagittarian energy that is basically a full moon on steroids. So again, it's a fire energy. Sagittarian sign is a fire sign. So we have a fire energy. We have the kind of lust for adventure. I want to go. I want to explore. I want to understand and learn about things that I do not know. Sagittarius sign is the sign that takes us on adventure, but not necessarily just for the sake of an adventure. This is the sign that takes us on adventure to expand our horizon, sometimes literally to the places that we've never been, sometimes metaphorically through learning about new subject, or exploring um I don't know, exploring different parts of galaxy and universe through Star Trek on TV or amazing book like that. So it's expanding our horizon, literally metaphorically. Um, it's the sign that introduces us to something that is foreign. Foreign land, foreign people, foreign ways of life, foreign food, anything that it's not something that we grew up with. It's not something within an area of comfort zone for us, our family, our culture. This is not what we grew up with. Sagittarius, it introduces us to something that we've never met before. And by that, again, expands our awareness, makes us curious. This is the sign that is curious. This is the sign that goes, "Oh, let's go on an adventure. Let's meet new people. Let's try new food. Let's go, to climb that mountain, or to go to this beach that we've never been to, and see if we can meet, interesting people on the beach, or, interesting fishes in the water." This is the sign that is full, full, full of energy. Um, but this is also the sign of a teacher and a preacher. This is the sign where, when we learn and we expand, we learn something and we can become that master that to the point when we can then teach others. So this is the sign of teaching new ways of life, new philosophies, the meaning of life. This is the sign where we can meet our teacher, our guru, someone that we can learn from, not necessarily in a spiritual way, but also, we can meet a teacher who will show us how to do our job really well and mentor us through our work and our career. And yeah, the full moon in Sagittarius. For me, this is the time in the summer, this kind of between the summer, oh, actually it's not the summer yet, we're still in the Gemini season. So this is the mutable sign when we're just about to taste summer, but not quite there yet. But Sagittarius full moon gives us the sense of an adventure. It's like, oh my God, the summer is here. You can probably even tell from the way I talk. This is it. The summer is nearly here. We can taste it. The kids are nearly out of school in so many countries. They're breaking for the long summer vacation. This is the time to plan the adventures. And I think this is the energy that this full moon is bringing. We'll touch on some of the aspects, but this is the energy that I love about Sagittarius. This is like, yes, we're nearly there, and we can plan an exciting adventure in the summer.
Yes, it's very exciting to be in Sagittarius territory. I think I echo everything you've been saying about exploration and adventure and getting out there to see what we don't know, and expansiveness. I always think of Sagittarius, I think about the horse that's in the corral, and no matter how big that corral is, we want to get beyond that gate. We want to run to the horizon. We want to see what's beyond the horizon, what I don't know about yet. So there's sort of, for me, a restlessness with Sagittarius where everything that I know is great, but it's not enough. I need to find what is out there. And it's opposite the sign of Gemini, which we see on this full moon. And so if Gemini wants to ask the question of why, I think Sagittarius likes to ask why not? Why not run out there? Why not go find what is beyond the horizon? Why not be an adventurer and go explore? And just as you mentioned, Monica, like academic, learning, teaching, learning, all of that can be such a strong part of it, as well as travel. Also, spiritual exploration, I think, can be a huge part of this. Uh, Not just the what type of spiritual exploration do I want, but what is the path that gets me there? What is the tool? I always think that Pisces kind of represents what is beyond this world, this life, this what is spirit. Sagittarius is how do I arrive there? How do I get there? So is it meditation? Is it through, tarot? Is it through, Bible study? Like, what are the tools? What are the techniques? Sometimes even what is the dogma that I'm using to arrive to get there? So this can be a great time to reach out beyond our comfort zone and find maybe new ways, new tools, new techniques of how we can kind of be in that space or get to that space. And the one thing I will caution, and I think this is beautiful and dangerous both, the symbol for Sagittarius is the centaur. It's mutable, it's double-bodied, it's mutable fire. And so there's with the centaur, there's the idea of part human, part horse. And I think often we see the centaur and can think about images from Harry Potter or from ancient mythology, the wise centaurs, the Chiron and other type of figures who wanted to teach astronomy and in the fiction books and things of that nature, or wanted to heal humans, like, and that is definitely something Sagittarius can tap into. But 98% of the centaurs were running wild, were free. So this could also be saying it's a time to let our hair down and embrace the inner wild woman or Maynard, or have a little bacchanalia fest within reason, right? Like, what is that day once a year where we're in this full moon energy of Sagittarius that I can just be wild and free and see where that will lead me? What kind of adventure will that take me on? And so for me, I look forward to this day every year because it's like I give myself permission to just like, have no limits for a day.
Yeah. Let go. Let go. That's the key again for the full moon, isn't it? Just let go. I wouldn't be myself if I didn't bring up the dark side of the moon. So the full moon, as always, can bring up the shadow because between the two luminaries, there is nowhere to hide. So the shadow of the Sagittarius is being narrow-minded, is believing that my culture is better than your culture, that my tribe is better than your tribe, that my knowledge and my set of beliefs and philosophies is better than yours. So this is, like I said, this is the teacher and a preacher. And the preacher, when we have those fundamental preachers, very often they believe that they know the truth and they know the whole truth. And this is very dangerous territory for Sagittarius. So again, the full moon in Sag can bring that in us, like that kind of preachy type. I'm sure we all know some of that. Some of people who have very Sagittarian, Jupiterian chart, and they can get in that preachy mode. And sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's, inspiring and illuminating. And sometimes it's, oh my God, they're got on that soapbox and we can't drag them down. Um, and the way that they're not saying anything inspiring and fire building in us. They're actually saying things that are very limiting. So the full moon always have two sides, and depending on your understanding of the archetype and your connection with that archetype, what's happening in your chart. Are you familiar with Sagittarius? Are you friends with Jupiter? Um, you might have a very easy expression of that Sagittarian full moon, or seeing that kind of energy pulling you towards that more challenging expression.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you that there's very much that potential to see things with such blinders. I think Sagittarius is always looking for the truth. And it's very important we recognize the difference between I have found my truth or I have found the truth. If I have found my truth, then this way of eating, this type of doing a cleanse, this type of lifestyle, this type of spirituality works for me. And I'm willing to share that with anyone who thinks it might be good for them. But that's different from somebody who says, I have found the truth. And if you just do this, you need to go on sugar busters. You need to whatever it is that is like the answer for them. That whole preachy kind of, I'm going to hit you over the head with a 2x4 until you see things my way. And the belief that I'm doing this for your own good often can cloud to where we don't see that we are pushing our belief and our truth onto others. So yeah, I do think it's important to be aware of that kind of shadow side, and also the shadow of I can run a little too wild with the maenads. And am I following the pack mentality and just running crazy? Or, am I recognizing I'm running free and wild within whatever my healthy boundaries are? So those are things to always be mindful of, I think, during a Sagittarius lunation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have some aspects happening to the Sagittarius moon and the Gemini sun. And if you give me 1 second, I'm going to pull that up. So hold on. Okay, so here we are. We're back. And we're looking at the chart for June 4th. I know it says June 3rd. In San Antonio, it's June 3rd. Sorry, I didn't change the title. But we're looking at the chart for the full moon, 13 degrees of Sagittarius for the moon, 13 degrees of Gemini for the sun. And the one aspect that really stands out is the fact that it's making a square to Saturn, right? Saturn is at 7 degrees of Pisces. And for all intents and purposes, it's basically stationary. We can all argue about what constitutes stationary. Is it when the seconds or the minutes stop? But it will retrograde at 7 degrees, and it's at 7 degrees. So it's moving extremely, excruciatingly slow. And so we've got a T-square in mutable signs on the full moon. And just that in itself, to say you have a mutable square, to me is a statement wrought with paradox. Because I think of T-squares as very kind of solid energy and immovable energy, but mutable signs are all about change and movement. Where we've been, where we're going, what needs to we have to adapt to, what needs to change. And so I think here the pressure point, if you will, is falling on Saturn, since it's in the middle. It's the sign in between the sun and the moon. It's being hit by two squares on either side. And so, what is it that we're trying to create? We talked a while back when Saturn first entered Pisces. We did a in one of our podcasts. We were talking about, can you dream the dream? Can you bring it into reality? Or are we going to try to escape reality in fantasy? And how are we going to work this dynamic of Saturn, very concrete, very material oriented, very about the 3D physical plane, about responsibility? How are we going to balance and blend that with Pisces, spirituality, the dream, visionary energy? How are we going to make them work? It's probably going to be a little bit of testing that we have to do, and a little trial and error before we find the nice fit between these two, because it's not a soft and fluffy combination. And I think here's one of our like kind of first challenges that we see since Saturn has come into Pisces is, well, what is it that my light is going to be about? Where am I going to shine my light? The sun. What is it that is my guiding light? The moon. How are we going to be moving? And then if we think about the signs involved, there's a lot of yearning for exploration out of what we know with Sagittarius, but also questioning and analyzing and asking the question why, and why should I move in that direction with the sun in Gemini. And here in the middle is Saturn. So I think it's quite easy for us to get caught up with feeling overwhelmed, with not being able to stay in the realm of the mind, because the realm of the heart and our dreams and our desires and our fears and our anxieties kind of start to take over. And in our effort to want to put a wall up around that or push that down, there could be some backlash that we experience. We also
Yeah.
have another aspect, and then I'll turn it over to see what Monica has to share about some of this. The other big aspect that stands out is Mars hanging out in 8 degrees of Leo. Right? It is making a sextile to the sun, a nice fire trine to the moon. I think this is bringing a whole lot of energy. I love seeing Mars be active, because we've had so many months of Mars was retrograde, Mars was out of bounds, like Mars was challenged. Now, Mars was in its fall. Now it's like Mars is free to be Mars. And so it's great to see these harmonious aspects to the luminaries. And I think there's a lot of energy and passion. And like, I really want to get myself going, and I want to move forward, and I want to do it now, that we get from that Mars side versus the whoa, 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 maybe I need to slow down, that we might be feeling from that kind of Saturnian side.
Eh, It's it's interesting combination between Saturn and Pisces and Moon in Sagittarius, isn't it? Because
Mm,
both signs relate to spirituality, and both signs relate to the way we relate to spirituality, to that inner world, to higher self, if you will. Um, and the square between them, that's the dynamic friction that we have. On one hand, we have the situation when the moon shows us in the light of the fullness of the moon, we can see the philosophy, Sagittarius, the philosophy that we live by, the meaning of life that we assign to our own life. And then Saturn in Pisces is kind of, I feel like it's challenging that and says, okay, but what spiritual structure do we have to support that meaning? What spiritual structure do we have to support that that philosophy that we live by? Because ultimately, the philosophy of life that we have, if it's not rooted in that spiritual life, in that meaning on a deeper level, it feels like it lacks roots for me personally. So I feel like between those two, that tension, that square, it kind of ask us that question, like where are the foundation, the spiritual foundation, the spiritual home, however you want to define that. And I'm not saying that it has to be an organized religion, but what is it that at the deep level no one can take away from you, and you're bringing from that, you're mastering from that, and then you're taking it and nurturing your philosophy of life. That's the meaning that you ascribe in Sagittarius, that when you're going to, you're meeting different cultures, meeting different religions, you're not lost because you know at your core who you are, and you can meet them at a different level. There is a different meeting point when you don't know who you are and you're searching for yourself, going to different places. I mean, the cliche is, going for Europeans traveling to India and, going to ashram and trying to find themselves. That's the typical cliche. But it is, we find ourselves sometimes in a different culture, in a different country, in a different religion, because it helps reflect back to us what's really at our core. And I think with this lunation, the full moon, that energy is shining really bright at that dynamic conversation between those two planets, and say, okay, what is your foundation? Saturn can be that teacher, but it's that relentless teacher. It's not the teacher that shows us, the vastness of things that we can learn. It's the teacher that comes in and asks, to do a homework and to do the test. And Saturn comes in and says, okay, well, have you built that foundation? Do you have a stable ground? Which is really weird to say when Saturn is in Pisces. But do you understand the ocean, the vastness of your own incredible inner life? So when you go out there in Sagittarius, you meet those people and they only enrich you, or those cultures enrich you, instead of feeling threatening because you don't know your own boundaries, you don't know your own foundation, you have not mastered. That's another thing for Saturn. You haven't mastered your own spiritual life with Pisces. So when you go out there to a different culture, it feels threatening. Not because they're threatening on their own, because you don't have that spiritual strong center. If you do have that, nothing is threatening. Everything else is interesting. It's curious. You can go out there and feel enriched by those different cultures, religions, people, that you meet, because you know who you are at your core. So I think this is going to be really, really cool full moon to ask yourself those questions.
yeah, and that idea of getting to know who you are at the core is so important because I think in addition to that curiosity and or threat about the foreign element out there,
Mm.
there's also the Saturn and Pisces. It has a bit of a dismantling kind of energy to it. If we're going to, repair an old house, first we have to take inventory of what has sound structure and what doesn't. What can be saved and salvaged, and sometimes you have to tear down the house and make one pile of this is going to the junkyard, this is being saved and going to be repurposed back in. And then once we have a healthy foundation, we build the house back up. And Saturn's cool with that, but I think Pisces is not so comfortable. There can be that sense of disappointment, disillusionment. I thought, just using religion as an example, one of many examples, I thought this was going to give me the answers. This was going to give me a sense of solace. I'm not feeling solace right now. Why is this not getting me there? Do I need to find something else to replace it? Or do we need to just start asking some deeper questions like, why is
Hmm.
this the path I'm choosing to go down? Are there other paths within this framework that will work for me better that I haven't explored? Who can I talk to about it? That whole broadening our mind of Sagittarius and then asking those questions of Gemini and bringing that in not as a threat or a challenge and not throwing out the baby with the bathwater because something doesn't feel like it's working as it is, but figuring out that we have the knowledge and we know in our core what's right for us, and we can find the truth that's right for me within this framework or other frameworks. So I think it's a little bit of kind of readjusting. Everything isn't just let's create a vision board and poof, now it's real. It's let's create the vision board now that we're in Pisces territory. Now, how am I going to build and make that vision my reality? Is kind of the Saturnian task. And we have an asteroid for those who work with asteroids that we could pop into this chart. Down near the sun, she is hanging out. Juno is hanging out at 19 degrees of Gemini, so within orb of that conjuncting that sun. And I think whenever we bring Juno, the asteroid, into the picture, there's a bigger question here, which is, are you willing to make a commitment? If you ask yourself the how, the why questions, and you get to the answer, what are you going to do now that you have the answer? Are you going to make a commitment to follow through, to stick with it, to be with it in some way? You know, she's to sum her up, she's often referred to as sort of the, you know, marriage asteroid, the role of wife, the idea of taking commitment and sticking with things. Um, so she, to me, has a very Saturnian kind of flair about her. Like, are you in it for the long haul? Or are you just in it because it feels good and it offers you a patch right now? She's not interested in the patches. She wants to know, once you answer these questions, how can you stay with it? And how are you going to commit to it? And how are you going to bring it into your life and your world? And through that square energy, if she gets pulled into that square energy a bit, then perhaps how are we going to make time? Another very Saturnian word. How are you going to make time in your life to follow through with commitments to that thing that answers your question for you? So I think this could be a really good lunation for getting to the root of the matter of what it is I need to be focusing on in the months to come.
I love that. I do love that. And I love that you brought up the disillusion with Pisces, because I think Saturn in Pisces, the danger with that, and especially when we're talking about Sagittarius full moon, the danger with that is, who is my teacher? And am I getting disillusioned with him or her, right? Um, who is the person that guides me on that spiritual path? Whether we're talking actually, like spiritual masters, or just my yoga teacher, or a guru. Who is that person that I look up to? And are they actually master of the craft? Do they actually represent, what they preach? Do they really embody that spiritual compassion and love that is so core to Pisces archetype? Or are they just, in a veil of illusion, and they're creating, again, another thing with Pisces, they're creating that kind of veil of spirituality in them, but they're rotten to the core. And suddenly that veil drops and you see them for who they are in that light of the full moon. And it can be really distressing as well, that the person that you felt, embodies those qualities, turns out no, they don't. They just created that fog of illusion in front of us, that mirage, which is again so common with Pisces energy. And we still have Neptune there as well. So yeah, this might be the full moon that shows us, that. And I think, again, what I love about the full moon energy, we do have the full moon obviously as that kind of fullness, and it's that hit of energy. if we embrace that, it can be really empowering. We can, ride that wave of energy. It's the moment when we hold back and that energy is hurling at us that we get, kicked in the stomach. And then like 3 days later, you're just shaking off the full moon energy. But when you ride that wave, you can actually go to the core. But again, with those questions that we're discussing here today, sometimes it takes courage, when things are so near and dear to our hearts, like our own philosophy of life, meaning in life, spirituality. Those are the core values that we built our life. If that gets questioned, if that gets, if the disillusion creeps in, sometimes that really can shake the foundation of everything we stand on. um but again, the question is that shake up, going to shake off some of the dust and helps us, kind of get the clutter out? Or is that shake up more like an earthquake when everything just falls in? So I mean, I'm looking at that Jupiter as well,
Hang on.
Kimberly. I'm looking
Before
at
you
that
jump into
Jupiter.
Jupiter,
Yeah,
I just want to add one more thought, kind of tagging on to
go
what you
on,
said. And
go
that's
on.
that with the full moon energy, right? As you said, it's that culmination point. It's also when I start releasing. I'm stepping into the other side, the waning light of the moon. So what am I releasing? And so I ask myself this big Sagittarian question, I think, at this time of year, especially with this aspect, is at what point do I stop being the student? Maybe my teacher's fine. Maybe the teachers have been great. Maybe the dogma worked before. But at what point do I stop being the student or the apprentice and become the teacher, the master? At what point do I let go of the need for somebody to show me the way and I walk on my own 2 feet? And at what point do I stop walking my own 2 feet and start teaching or sharing what I know with others, even if I don't have the quote unquote Saturnian credentials that I think I need to do that? And so that could be another thing that's really coming forward is sort of, we've been walking with somebody holding our hand, and now that letting go and walking on our own 2 feet and believing in our ability to walk this path, that walk the walk and do it on our own, as opposed to feeling like we need guidance or we need somebody, I think can be really big. And with Mars making these lovely harmonious, this is the time to step in and take action and take those first steps on your own.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me
And
put that in.
that's that's all right. And Mars is also squaring the Jupiter North Node in Taurus. Jupiter is the ruler of this lunation. So Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. So he rules the full moon. And Jupiter is hand in hand with the North Node, sitting there at the beginning of Taurus. So again, Jupiter as that planet of expansion and making things bigger and better. I mean, we have a full moon in the fire sign, and we have Jupiter and making things bigger and better. But just kind of, it just feels like it supports everything that we're talked about, because Jupiter is in a sign of Taurus, which is again for me the sign of we're learning through our five senses. So Jupiter will be in Taurus. Kimberly and Anne already mentioned that in a previous episode, but Jupiter will be in Taurus for a year long. So this is the first lunation that Jupiter rules, but Jupiter as a planet will be in the sign of Taurus for a year. That planet usually goes into the sign, stays there for the whole year, then moves to another one, and it takes 12 years to go through the whole zodiac. So we will learn a lot about Jupiter and expansion of the Taurian archetype in our lives over the next 12 months. Um, if you have a look where the Taurus is in your chart, that's where the planet of luck, the planet of expansion, the planet of abundance comes in. And for the next 12 months, we'll be blessing that house, that area of life, and any planets that are within that with their, beneficial magic. But Jupiter is asking in Taurus about how do we step into the abundance through Taurian archetype. And Taurus is all about our body, our five senses, perceiving the world through the five senses. So, being able to smell the fragrance of the world, hear the sound, taste it, touch it, see it, all that, and seeing the beauty of Taurian world. And Jupiter will be helping expand those senses for us. For me, it just feels like the teacher, it's stepping from that podiums and the chairs and wherever the teachers and the gurus sit, and go into the body, and it will be teaching us about life and the beauty, and so to speak, the Garden of Eden, through our own senses. How masterful is your body, and how much your body can become your teacher. This is another thing, and we've talked about that, so many times. I mean, on our podcast, body is incredible teacher. If you really listen in, and if we really tune in, the symptoms are the body's language to tell us, hey, something's not quite right. Hey, I need your help. Maybe you need to support me. And we know when we're in a healthy environment, we can literally physically feel how our body relaxes. If we're in a space that we feel safe and secure, and it's beautiful, comfortable space, our body reacts to that environment even before we consciously can react to this environment. And in the same way, the body will react with tension and hyperactivity even before we consciously realize that we might be uncomfortable or in danger or something's going on. So I think Jupiter in Taurus, one way of expressing it will be to teach us about um the teaching qualities of our own bodies, and how much we can learn just through listening and tuning into our five senses about the world. That sometimes it's not about traveling out there. Sometimes you can literally learn about the world through tasting different food and different spices, and actually learning through taste and smell and sight on your plate how amazing and expansive the world can be.
That's so beautiful. I love it. And so true. And it makes me think this is a perfect time for maybe stepping on some mindful eating exercises, or for people who are interested in doing somatic body work, where the body has wisdom and we're learning to hear how our body wants to talk to us about sharing that wisdom and that knowledge of what we need. Like, this is so perfect. And I'm
Mm,
also going to bring the shadow side in. Now it's my turn, right? To say that the one thing with Jupiter that can be a struggle is excessiveness.
mhm,
Exaggerated energy and excessive energy is the shadowy side of Jupiter. And so, with Jupiter in Taurus, the other thing that could happen is, if we're not in touch with our body, if we're not doing the embodiment work of some kind nature, we could go into the pacifying our emotions through the body, through overeating, through eating the wrong foods, through that becoming excessive about taking in the agriculture of the world, of Mother Earth, the Taurus energy resources, and going crazy with them. And it might not be food, because Taurus is often about our different resources and how we're using them. So I would say that, we need to be aware of, are we, working with our body or against our body? And then the other thing that comes up for me is, that could be exaggerated, is the Taurian tendency towards resistance. And since this Jupiter is caught up in a grand cross with Mars, South Node, and Pluto, I'm going to say that, resistance could be a real issue here, whether we see it or not. The resistance to perhaps that North Node, perhaps you're getting the message, or you're getting the answers to those big questions about how to move forward. What is the next step on your karmic journey, kind of thing? And what if that's not an answer that my ego wanted? I might be tempted to say no. I'm not doing that until I'm ready, or I'll do that when it feels right, or now's not the right time. And it all comes down to no, because, with Taurus energy, I will move forward at my pace. I have to overcome my inertia. It has to be my idea. It has to be something that comes slowly from within, and I process and I bring it to fullness and outward, and then I can move with it. It is not a sudden lightning strike, light bulb goes off, and now, oh, I have this idea, I run with it. And yet, we've already shared the lunation's bringing in a lot of mutable energy, so we may have those momentous, the light bulb goes off, ooh, this is what I need to do, yes, and then instantly follow with a no. So I think resistance to the call of what our North Node, what our sense of future and moving forward is about, as much as it can be nurturing, it can be frightening. And I think we may resist. And I say frightening because, as we've talked about for the last 18 months, the nodes are in Taurus, Scorpio. So what happens to one opposes the other. And that final bit of work, Anne and I talked 2 weeks ago about, the nodes are about to leave this summer, these signs, and enter the Aries Libra axis. So during these final 3 degrees, we're doing the finishing work. We're finishing up the work we've been doing so intently for the last 18 months. And some of that work is about what I'm going to create. And some of that work is about the fear I need to release, let go, or I need to just create in spite of the fear and do it anyway. But there's something here with this lunation where it's sort of that grit in the shoe. We need to get it out if we're going to really be able to walk forward.
Yeah. Yes.
And of course, there's still tension from Pluto, which began about 3 weeks ago, back on May 17th, is when transiting Jupiter squared Pluto for the first time. And so we're still feeling I think what we're feeling is that these opportunities that are presenting can be life-changing. And that might be also part of why they feel scary, because things that are life-changing means we
Yeah.
don't get to go back to the way things were before. And as much as we may want things to be different, there's still something about, I don't have control. That's outside my comfort
Mhm.
zone. I'm not so sure. This is very North Node territory. It's different. And I think the way of working this energy, and seems to me that I remember mentioning Mars last time too. Mars to me feels like the way I can work through this impasse, this grand cross impasse. Mars is the Leo energy. We've been talking I think, since we started this podcast, we have been talking a lot about Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius energy. We've had planets transiting, we've had lunar eclipses, we've had squares, T squares, but we don't talk a whole lot in this particular period of time about that Leo. And so here comes Mars, suddenly out of bounds, suddenly free from being in fall with lots of energy into Leo. Here's, I think, what's different is that energy. So the more we can do things without giving it a ton of thought, the more we can take one small baby step forward and act right now with that sense of fire, that sense of excitement, that sense of fun. And then afterwards, we might kind of backtrack and go, oh my gosh, what did I just do? But that kind of embracing a little bit of spontaneous, impulsive, and keeping it fun. If something is so scary, it starts to feel paralyzing. That's not the right thing to do. Let's let's scale it back. What is the first step towards that I can do? So it still feels like, Mars and Leo, I have the image of a kid on the 4th of July with firecrackers in their hands. Yes, let's run around, let's have fun, let's be joyous. Let's bring the creativity and the spark of ourself forward, but in ways that feel good. So
Mm.
I'm hoping that that is something that allows all of us to work through some of this tension.
Yeah. I I agree. I mean, I agree with everything you said. Mars in Leo can bring that um life energy of that inner child to the forefront, and I think that can be super, for people who are not used to it, it can be super scary because the Western culture teaches us you're an adult, you have to wear gray suit and be very serious and talk about I don't know, responsible things. And here is Mars, like you say, going like, oh my god, I'm in Leo and I just want to be colorful and bright and creative and just create for the sake of creation. Mars is our life energy, is that life, is that drive that we have to take another breath, to live another day. This is what gets us from bed in the morning. That Mars energy is that love for life. And that will be in Leo, bigger and better. But in that kind of childlike, not childish, but childlike way. I want to shine bright. I want to, as the Ariana sings, I want to shine like a diamond, and Mars will be there. Like, I want to have fun. And I think with that square to Jupiter as well, what I was saying earlier on, Jupiter can make our body be our teacher. So our body can become our teacher. Listen to your body, what it needs. Maybe you're sitting there making coffee and suddenly, you just hear the music and your body start moving and, and your hand is like your leg is tapping and suddenly, your hips are moving. This will be Mars energy coming through you, but your body can be that teacher. If you pay attention to your body through the next 12 months, you can learn a lot about your environment and yourself just by listening to the body. Like I said earlier on, if your body tenses, listen to your body. Like, is there anyone within the sphere that just came into the room or came in close to me that make me feel uncomfortable? Why is that? Is it my boss? Is it my partner? Is it a friend? Like, do I not trust them? Why is my body tensing and feeling uncomfortable when that person walked into the room? What is it? Is it me? Are they triggering something in me? Sometimes it's not them. Sometimes they trigger something in me. I feel like I have a secret to hide and they'll see through me. So that's my thing. Sometimes it's just like, you know what? They might not be a nice person to be around. So why you're pushing yourself to be close to them where your body tells you, no, it's not a good thing. I mean, there's so many times that we don't listen to those gut feelings, as we call them. We don't see or hear our body screaming that something's up. And in the hindsight, we go, oh yeah, I did feel that something was wrong in that room or something was right. Or I should have slowed down when I was on a motorway. So Jupiter in Taurus can help make our body our teacher. And then Mars in Leo can create that creative tension and go, well, we can listen to our body and see how creative that body wants to express itself, how creatively that body wants to express itself. It might be through dance. It might be through, sorry, through going horseback riding. It might be through going on the body will just crave going into nature and for a walk. It might be just singing out loud in the shower. Apologies. So those two can actually work really well in harmony. And again, if we don't listen, if we get stuck, like Kimberly just brought up that shadow side, if we get fixated, then instead of harmony, it will be disharmony. That creative tension will become tension.
Yeah. And this is a really good time to notice, because if there is tension that comes up, even if the tension is what motivates us into moving through the tension into that more harmonious place that Monica was describing about Jupiter and the North Node, sometimes tension is just the motivator. I think one of the books that I love about aspects, they talk about squares being the tension that forces us to take action to remove ourselves from the tension. So it can often be a catalyst that moves us forward. So noting what are the catalysts, what are the things that don't feel right, whether that's with my body, whether that's in my life, whether that's my thinking, my attitude, I want to get out of here. I feel the need to escape. What are the things that create discomfort? And just noticing what's rising to the surface of that list. And I say this because we only have had a little taste of Pluto that's squaring all of this energy. We've had a taste of Pluto in Aquarius, right? I think it was March 23rd, it entered Aquarius. Shortly thereafter, it went retrograde. And we're going to see, I think it's, did I say the 11th of June? It's going to retrograde back into Capricorn and stay there for the rest of the year while we finish up that Capricorn work. So this was a taster, a teaser about the work we're going to do next year. Next year, after the new year in 2024, when Pluto comes back, when it ingresses back into Aquarius, we get to do the serious work. So this is sort of that foreshadowing, maybe what some of the work is about. Not that the work is always going to be tension, but right now, through the combination of these aspects, it comes up. We are able to see it because of the tension created, and later we'll be able to work on it in more positive ways. So, looking at your chart, seeing where Aquarius lives within you and where do you feel that discomfort from this combination of these four signs, this fixed energy grand cross, could be really useful in terms of the work we're going to be doing next year.
Yeah. And I couldn't miss one more aspect that I really wanted to talk about quickly at the end. So I'm not going to expand on that. But we still have quite a few planets in that Taurus. That's why we're so on the Taurus all the time, because there's just so many planets in there. So during this lunation, we also have Uranus and Mercury conjunct each other. And I think, again, just talking about the lunation, talking about the full moon. So we've talked about all those aspects, making us ask those questions about our teachers and meaning of life and our spirituality and where our roots are with that. And I feel like Mercury and Uranus in Taurus will be asking similar questions. It will be that breakthrough, that question that someone might ask, or that information that someone can give us, that will be like a lightning bolt to lightning bolt, not bulb, lightning bolt to our values. So it can be like the moment someone says something or asks us question or gives us the information, and suddenly the values that we hold dear, Taurus, right, the foundations that we have, suddenly there's something that we need to let go of. So I will be interested to see what will be happening around that weekend. I'll be paying close attention, going back to tips now. So this is probably first of my tips for this lunation. Pay attention around the full moon, maybe day before, day after as well. What are the information that coming through? What are the downloads that coming through? Is there someone or something that you heard that speaks directly to your core values? That maybe makes you make a different decision, makes you want to expand your horizon, ask different questions, put your teachers in a different light. What is it about those unexpected information download or questions that are happening around the time, if that helps?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm tagging on with talking about Mercury and Uranus as well. What I find really interesting about this conjunction that's finally happening, and on on the on the 4th, so within, from my point of view, from my time zone, so within 24 hours following this lunation, boom, they're making that exact contact. And y'all may recall that back in April 20th was when Mercury started the pre-shadow retrograde dance, all of that was happening, and they came within like 2 degrees of each other, right before the Mercury retrograde. So I feel like perhaps something that was important to us back in April in terms of my thinking, my communication, how I think about what do I value, what's going on with my sense of self-worth, all these Taurian themes. What are my resources, and what I'm thinking about that and how I'm communicating it. What was the big aha moment? What was the big lightning strike that almost happened or happened and then suddenly was gone? Or, go back through, this is my tip, go back through your journals if you have some, or, look through your emails and try to recall what was going on in my world in April that now I'm ready to act on. That now it's like, then it would have felt like the tower card and everything's going to crumble. And that's just too extreme and too outlandish. But now is the time for something that extreme and that outlandish. Or pay attention to what's going on around you. And is something happening now that seems to be repeating something from April? Because perhaps we had to change our thinking in order to be ready to receive the change that we need to be making. So yeah, it's not exactly a practical tip, but then again, this is a lunation in Sagittarius, so my tips, I feel like it should involve ask the big questions. So there you go.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's a Sagittarius full moon, right? So I would also suggest, and that's actually what I'll be doing on this weekend, go out there and try something new.
Yeah.
Go to a rolling skating disco, or, Go to a different restaurants that you haven't been before, or you're not a fan of theater, maybe go and see a play or something. Try something new. Try something that you're curious and it's interesting, but you've never done before. It's Sagittarius. It needs to be fun. It needs to be inspiring. It's not a chore to do it, but it's something that can expand your life. You don't know what will happen when you enter the areas outside of your comfort zone.
That's right. That's where the magic happens.
That's what they tell me.
All right, I think we just got the title for this episode. Magic begins outside your comfort zone. There we go.
Here we go.
All right. Well, as always, please comment, share your ideas, your what works, resonates for you. What do you agree with? What is some other opinions, other points of view that you have? Love to hear different points of view through the comments below. And if you haven't already done so, feel free to subscribe, hit that notification bell. We come out about every 2 weeks. We try to post the Saturday before the new and full moon, so that way you'll be notified of when our next episode comes out. And we'll be back to see you to talk about the next new moon on June 18th.
Bye now.
Thank you for joining us in this week's Astro Chat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. AstroChat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support AstroChat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.